All right, so I've got my boy Tonester Paints here. This guy deserves all the glazing in the world because his business, his content, everything that he's doing right now, he's absolutely killing it. And it's been crazy to watch it over the past 3 years since I think we met like 3 years ago.
It was about 3 years ago, yes.
Right. So it's been, again, an absolute journey. I've been lucky enough to kind of see the rise all the way from the beginning. And I'm excited for everyone to hear the full story that Grace and I kind of previewed a few episodes ago. So, Tony, like 30-second quick intro, sort of tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are right now.
For sure. Well, first off, my name's Tony Pelosino, and I appreciate the very kind introduction. So I am the owner and the operator of Tonester Paints, which is a premium interior wall paint brand that I started here in Orlando, Florida, from essentially the sole use of creating social media content. So the model that I've created is building a brand by posting social media content specifically on Instagram and TikTok, and creating an e-commerce site as well, directly linked to those platforms where I can promote, advertise the products that I specifically make in the interior design world and offer them to my audience, essentially.
But dude, you're selling yourself short, man. What is that initial story? You know the one that I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
So,
How did we get here?
it is a very, very, very interesting story. And it happened so well. I guess it didn't really happen that long ago in the big picture, but I've been in the paint industry since I was 18 years old, so about 8 years now. Initially working at Sherwin-Williams, which is we know like the biggest paint manufacturer in the world. And really, I just got into the industry just as like a part-time college gig, and I really ended up liking the industry, the business, the product, everything about it, right? Just selling paint products, just because a lot of people don't really realize how involved it is with like our entire community life. Like, I mean, there's literally, if you think about it, a coat of paint on like almost everything, which I thought was really cool. And it's a very stable business. And then, being in the industry for however long, I learned how to make my own colors. But where things took a turn was when I was in school, and this is like when TikTok first like became a thing, like or late 2019, 2020, right? Like around COVID. I was just working at the paint store as I was doing before, making paint colors, and I just started recording myself making different colors and started posting it to TikTok, and the account went like super viral, like super quick. Such a weird time in like the content space for like what was popping and what wasn't. Like very like all these new things were emerging, right? So the paint mixing became like a thing that I kept doing and building an audience from it. So me being a marketing student at Ohio University at the time, I was like, yo, I got to pitch this to marketing, like to the company. Like this is gaining views and attention, like just me doing my job.
How big are we talking? Was it at that time? Like how many
Uh,
followers ish?
well, when it first kicked off, dude, I mean, like the first few videos started getting like in the million view range. And that was the beautiful part about TikTok was you didn't need that pre-built audience fan base to get views and attention. I mean, it was like the Wild West at the time. So yeah, it was in the millions of view range, at least forget how many videos at the time. Maybe I had like 20 at the start and maybe gained like a few 100,000 followers, if I'm remembering correctly. It was a reasonable size audience in such a quick period of time. And so, like I said, wanted to pitch it to the company as I liked working there and wanted to actually follow a career through Sherwin-Williams. And this was probably summer of 2020, like the heat of COVID. Um, my pitch that I had built out got rejected, essentially like blown off. Like that no one even ever really saw it. And shortly thereafter, I had gotten fired for posting those videos that I guess that were not approved by the company. Um, I believe in the termination papers, it was a gross misconduct violation. From my understanding, just doing stuff on the job you weren't supposed to be doing. Right. Which makes sense. So that's how it played out. And then after I got fired, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to keep making these videos and eventually build out my own product, my own brand to advertise, market, and sell with this audience that I had built. And, one thing leads to another. The story got out there that I was fired from a video that I had posted talking about it. That's where things had really taken off. And that was in late 2020. And like I said, story blew up, national media coverage. It was insane, like just an insane story, I guess, to be going like that viral. And got a few opportunities in my hand to work with different manufacturers in the US. And from there, that's when I started to build out Tonester as its own brand and identity. And like really the same kind of concept from 4 years ago is just using the content to promote and advertise the product. Now I'm able to sell it as my own. So it's a wild story. It crazy how that time period was only about 4 years ago too.
That's so awesome. I love how, like, everything is content, like, even, like, getting fired, talking about
I
it,
know.
going viral. What made you wanna share that? Because I feel like something most people would feel scared sharing about how they got fired.
Well, yeah, that was actually that's a really good question because that was kind of a pivotal decision I had to make. Because at that time I really didn't have anything to lose. I clearly didn't have a job. I had an audience. And as we all know as creators, we really want to build that personal side of things where people feel like they're connecting with a real human being behind the camera. And actually that was a story that I kind of wanted to share for that same sort of impact. And it went crazier than I ever would have thought. So that's why I'm always big when creators talk about building a personal brand, like being that super organic, authentic, like tell a real story that people could probably relate to. As Grace had mentioned before we started talking. I mean, that happens in this corporate world is, you know, things happen that may not be the most fair or probably could have played out differently. um, and just sharing your experience with others. That's how you kind of build that connection as well, in my opinion.
How do you build Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I agree. I also have my fair share of, like, my bosses don't like how I post a lot as well. But how do you balance, like, growing your personal brand and your professional paint brand?
Ooh, so that's also a good question. So really the pivot I took with the Tonester brand over the past few years is getting into the luxury market. I remember you guys were talking about myself on one of your previous podcasts where Justin knows I am a big fan of luxury goods and products. Only because most of the time it's not even about the product, the material, the design, but really it's when you buy this said product from a brand in the luxury market, you're almost included into that community. So that's one thing that I've been trying to be super focused on is building community around Tonester with obviously high quality product, unique design, um, stuff you're not going to be able to get at your local Home Depot or Sherwin-Williams. Um, but yeah, kind of creating that sense of community. Has been a really big thing for me.
Yeah, you see, I just don't understand the luxury market at all. Like that is just something that completely goes over my head. I've started to try to pay attention to it because I think the psychology behind it is fascinating, right? Like again, like you said, you're not people like to argue that you're buying the product, but a lot of the times you're buying into the community. You're buying to show status. You're buying to be able to show that you can afford this type of thing, which might open some doors, right? Like I remember if I know we were talking about LinkedIn before we started this podcast, but I'm pretty sure it was a LinkedIn, like a viral LinkedIn post about how this guy was talking about the ultimate networking tool that he had was like buying a Porsche 911 or something like that. But because he bought the Porsche 911, it allowed him to go to these meetups where everyone there was like a Porsche 911 owner. All of those people were business owners, yada yada yada. It allowed him to learn from them essentially. And like on the surface level, you look at it and you're like, wow, that's super superficial. Like, that's crazy that's a thing. But then you start digging into the psychology of it, and it's like, oh, that it kind of makes sense, right? And if you look at luxury goods, that might be the community tool for the wealthy.
Right.
You dive down into sports culture, right? And things like that. You have people that always buy memorabilia because they love that team,
Of course.
whatever it is. So it's kind of that same thing, just a different lens. So I've been paying attention more and more to it, even though it just still doesn't make much sense to me.
Well, Justin, you want to know a crazy story with a very, very good friend of mine who is a business owner. I'm actually friends with his son. That's how I met him way back in the day when I lived in Ohio. So they had moved to the DMV area, Washington, D.C. And his son, who was in, high school at the time, didn't have any friends, right? Didn't have a friend group, obviously, because they just moved from Ohio to DC. He told me he purposely bought, and he obviously their whole family's into cars as well. He purposely bought his son this crazy decked out BMW M2 or whatever, because in that area, if you become friends with other kids in that school or whatever who have cool cars, they, like I said, like they're in how he said is they're likely to, be around a good family who, where opportunities may come to them into the future, just kind of being a part of that little car group. Um, so that's another kind of example of that.
How
Yeah.
does your com Oh, go ahead.
No,
Oh,
no, no. Go ahead, guys. You're good.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I'm just curious. I'm trying to learn more about the luxury community as well. Like, so
Sure.
people like bond over like having cars, like for example, like Rolex watches or like
Watches, yeah.
Teslas, paying. How does your community look like? Do they bond over like having cool colored houses or
Of
curious to
course.
learn more? Yeah.
So yeah, the cool thing about Tonester is, especially from my short time into this world of luxury interior design, is where what people normally buy is not, like I said, the product, art, design. They're buying talking points that they could have for their guests when they come to their home, or whoever's involved with the design. It's like a talking point. And for people who care about the design of their home, um, that's really a big thing that I noticed too. So, for example, I go to these design weeks in Paris and Milan, and there's a lot of products and design. It's not even about the design itself. It's about this. They're selling the story of how this specific product or brand was made. And that's really what the selling point is for getting consumers to buy it, right? It's like you hear cool stories about a 70-year-old woodworker who designed this beautiful, beautiful chair, whatever it might be. And that's really what people are paying, those extremes amount of money for, like $50,000 for, a dining room table or something like that. Just kind of things like that. So I've tried doing that with Tonester specifically, is developing unique colors with stories behind them, cool, interesting, unique names tied directly to a person that will allow the consumers to showcase that within their spaces to whoever may be in their home at that time. Um, and that's the thing in the paint world. The paint world is so, especially in the United States, is so commercialized, where if you were to buy paint, you would just go to Home Depot, Lowe's, Sherwin-Williams. Like, there's no difference between buying a gallon of paint from there and buying like a, I don't know, a hammer. Like, it's just super, like, it's the shopping experience is so boring and commercialized. That's another thing I'm trying to change, and people really enjoy about using our products as well.
Mm.
Dude, so I feel like you started off as a creator, right? Just wanted to create content, showing off the paint, how this color is made, things like that, right? But there was sort of this shift where after I would say after you got fired for sure, but where you started to become more of a entrepreneur versus being a creator. And I think that's a big differentiator for a lot of content creators out there when they have to start making that shift. Cause I think a lot of people get into this game because it's like, oh, like this is cool, get to make videos. I see my idols making videos, my stuff is starting to pop off. Amazing. But then you have to start thinking about the business end.
Of
And
course.
for you, instead of a media company business end, which I think is a small piece of your stuff, a little bit like brand deals and things like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, the bigger part is more of a e-com, like CPG brand, right?
Yes.
So when did that shift sort of happen or start to happen? Because I think that's a big mindset shift when it comes to not being a creator anymore.
Definitely, dude. So yeah, that's a really, really good question, because it comes to a point in every creator's career where, first of all, I think you kind of do it for fun. An opportunity comes, like you had mentioned, brand deals. A little bit of revenue starting coming in from like what do they call it on YouTube? Like just
Oh,
ad revenue.
AdSense,
Yeah,
right?
ad revenue. But in the long term, I never realized that that was super sustainable, right? Because we know a bunch of creators who could have $20,000 months, but for whatever reason, the next month might be like a few $100s. So it was very, very inconsistent. You're almost at the mercy of an algorithm when you're worried about revenue from platforms. And then the same kind of thing with brand deals. You never know when a brand deal is going to come your way, or you could hire an agency, but you know, I remember you had told me this one time. There's like a very short lifespan of a creator. It's like I don't even remember what the exact
It's
number was,
like,
but it
I
wasn't.
think it's like 23 months or something like
Yeah, it's
is the
something crazy
typical
like that.
lifespan, yeah, which is wild to think about. But it's also the same as similar to a professional athlete, if you
Right,
think about it too, right?
right. And, you know, I just never realized that was sustainable. And, the one thing I was even really good at and interested when I was working at Sherwin was actually selling paint. Like that was one thing I realized I enjoyed doing. I knew how to do it. Um, and essentially I just took that audience in that platform that I already had and kind of just shifted it in the same way to where now I'm selling a product by posting. Um, and I think having a brand is one thing that more I've been more passionate about than creating content itself. Like we were talking about, I think the world of luxury brands and goods is just super cool, awesome. The community that's behind these brands. So I kind of wanted to do that myself. I guess that was the big picture. But when that shift happened, oh god, I probably would say it was 2021 when I moved to Florida. I kinda had to figure out how to do that for maybe about a year or so before things kinda picked up, and that was the new route that I was taking rather than posting for brand deals and ad revenue. And we know a lot of creators that have that issue where, they would love to figure out ways that they can monetize that they can control it. Um, because most of the time, I don't think it's up to them how they control where their money comes from.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm also curious, like, as a creator, how do you balance, like, content and leveraging, like, driving more eyeballs? Like, how do you grow? How do you get what's your way to, like, basically get more people to find your paint? Is it through, like, word of mouth? Is it through TikTok? Curious how that audience breakdown looks like for you.
For sure, yeah, I mean, it's, initially, it was for I think we all try to get as many views as possible, but the one thing that I've found that works for myself from a creator standpoint and the business owner is more is less sometimes, like, I don't when back in the day, I used to make, like, 2 to 3 videos a day. I think I maybe now make maybe once a week, basically when I'm truly inspired, like, I have a good vision for it. I know it'll look good on camera, good good concept to it. That's when I create now, but back in the day, it was create whatever you can at that time to build the audience. But um, how are people are buying the paint now? I think to your point, a lot of it is word of mouth. Um, when it at this very point in my business, now it took however many years for people to actually start buying the paint and to spread the word about it. But now a lot of it is word of mouth, working with really high end brands and like Veronese, which is a Milano glass company that I worked with in Paris. They're very, very aligned into the luxury world of interior goods. So collaborations like that. And the content still performs relatively well, especially on Instagram, because I believe Instagram compared to other social media platforms is consumer driven rather than entertainment. Where you get to see like cool brands, uh artists. There's a different aesthetic to it, I believe, at least on my feed, but that's just my experience with, you know, what I focus on when it comes to posting. If that makes
Yeah.
sense. Like TikTok, I mean, do we go on TikTok and well, they have TikTok Shop now, but I haven't gotten into that myself.
Mhm. I'm also curious, like, how do you yeah, I noticed that on my feed too. Like, Instagram's more like high quality, more polished, and TikTok
Of
just like
course.
my brain dumped. I treat it like that too. My TikTok is my whatever, and like whatever I do well does well on TikTok, I post on Instagram actually. So it's like my testing ground. It's like my lab and my showroom.
That's
Um,
exactly
yeah.
what I do. I also do the exact
Oh,
same thing. I post on TikTok first, see the performance, how it does, and then I'll go to Instagram.
that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Someone also told me that like one time, it's not good. It's Instagram algorithm doesn't like it when you repost videos from TikTok. So I always try to make it slightly different, like zoom, add a little bit zoom and stuff. But I'm not sure if that myth is true or not. But I've done like videos on TikTok first, and then it still went more viral on Instagram. So I don't know.
Well, you know what? I mean, I've never what I always do is I just make a piece of content and I'll post it on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, and that's about it. I don't really edit it or change it, so I haven't really seen that. But do those platforms really do that where they will analyze another platform to determine the performance?
So the rumor is that they do. Whether they do or not,
How
I
would they
don't
even
know.
know that?
Yeah, again, whether they do or not, I don't know. What I would say is what I've witnessed from the algorithm and what other friends have told me too is TikTok's initial push, which is right the most important push for your content to perform to like the first 100 people or whatever see your posts. TikTok's is completely random. So for the TikTok algorithm, you want or typically the content that performs well is more broad content,
Okay.
right? So that's why before like man on the street really worked really well because it was this new sort of niche. And that is something that anyone can connect to, right? Versus someone that does, let's just say, I don't know, like let's say like Grace was were to like freehand draw something that doesn't apply to as many people that want to see something like that. So it might not do as well on TikTok versus on Instagram. It seems to be much more community and share driven. So
Sure.
content like yours, for instance, right, Tonester, where people are sharing this because it's like, "Yo, look at this new color that he just dropped," or like, "Yo, I really wanna buy this color," right? Or like, for instance, Michelle might share that to me because it'll be like, "Hey, Justin, maybe we should paint a room in our
Of
house
course.
or our apartment like this," right? So that because the algorithm slightly changed a little bit, like, in terms of what they favor or whatever, that's what I've heard. So people try to curate their Instagram feed more for, like, community and niche content, versus TikTok, which is you try to be more broad and try to reach as many people as possible.
Wow. You know what I just made me think of? And I've actually this is a little bit of a strategy of mine specifically for Instagram. I mean, just kind of the style of the content I post. It's very um what I've learned is like you said, you can share stuff on Instagram much easier than you can TikTok. And I'm not even talking sharing to your friends or whoever. It is sharing to the story that I know. I've always noticed the more story shares I get, always the content performance. Like that's a big piece of the Tonester IG account is the story shares. Something that like we're talking about, like everyone on Instagram is very wants it to be polished, have their page have an aesthetic, which also applies to their stories and what their followers are seeing. So having something that looks like clean, unique right from the start where they can share that to their story is huge. That's actually kind of how the I base my content creation off is like, oh, how's this gonna look on someone's story?
I'm curious, like, what makes someone share on their stories? Like, how do you like design for story sharing and go about that for like your
Well,
reels?
you know, I guess it's just kind of user recognition. Like I've just kind of realized like most people who have an Instagram, like it's almost like their highlight reel, like what they're into, so they think other people will think that their stuff's cool, all this kind of weird stuff. It's all about aesthetics. So, um, and I'm a very big user of social media myself. So I know kind of what aesthetic I want and is going to look good on the feed and that I would like. So that's kind of the model of how I create and template my um, content for the Tonester page.
Hmm. Do you post the same content on like you say you post the same content all the platforms, right? But like on TikTok, you kind of like post everything, and then the ones that does well, you post on Instagram.
Now, right now, I just post the same piece of content to Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, but I've seen a lot of successful small business owners, um, who have that sort of model where they'll do the POV talking to the camera, just kind of, a sillier video, um, handheld, and then they'll post their, polished stuff on Instagram. You know who a
Mm.
good example of this is? Do you guys know who Strawberry Milk Mob is? The 3
Yes.
Mm.
sisters who are doing their it's because
I
we're
I don't know why their content always pops up on my For You page, but it always does, right? They're like, it's like the girls, they like vlog or whatever kind
yeah,
of.
yeah, they
They do
daily
like a crazy story type of thing.
Strawberry milk?
Strawberry Milk
Milk pop?
Mob.
Oh,
So
okay, I'm
their
gonna
TikTok is super goofy, it's silly, like, it's just super fun and playful, as TikTok content should be. Then you go to their Instagram, and it's very, like, pictures of their product being modeled, um, very, very polished, and that seems to work for them. I've done my research on their product. I mean, they're selling thousands of their products a day from that model. And then their TikTok community, from them posting those kind of more organic, silly videos, is just their views and reach is insane. And the community they have, like people like follow up on like what they're
I
doing.
didn't I didn't know that their Instagram was like the polished
It
perspective.
kind of
mm.
is here.
I've only seen yeah, I've only seen their TikTok, and their TikTok is like a freaking reality TV show.
I know.
That's probably the best example that I could think of.
Yeah, no, it's a kind of it's not really a 180, but it's definitely they definitely know what they're doing when it comes to what each platform wants to see. And I've
Mm.
never been one to, I've wanted to kind of pivot and get into more like you said, like reality TV stuff, like organic, what behind the scenes kind of stuff. But um, I don't know. I haven't. I've been thinking about it for quite some time now. I need to kind of figure out my new model with it. Just because I want to do it. I think personally be fun. It's not that we have an issue with reach or anything, but I think that would be fun and kind of get me back into a new way to make content again. Because I think we always are looking for that new spark for us to keep going on the content creation.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What kind of content do you notice does well with your audience, and which one do you enjoy making the most?
The content that I like making that performs the best is it's really just showcasing the colors in the can. It's kind of funny. It's very repetitive, but it works. And it's so funny. Like I was just even thinking about it the other day. Like I usually sounds are just like such a big part of the content that I make. Really, I won't make a new video until I hear a new sound or song that I like, which is crazy. Um, so the sounds are a really big part of it. And also something that's just a tad bit informative, like a hook that I like to use is colors that will create a so and so feeling in your home, how to what kind of color trends are for 2025 or for this spring, like something just a little bit informative that keeps them like hooked in, and then showcasing the products that we have, which are very, very cool and specific to our brand. It kind of all just ties them together to one little cycle. I think that's what the type of content performs the best on our channel.
Do
Mm. Yeah,
you
notice okay.
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, no. No, I just, like, noticed how, like, creators, including myself, just, like, throw spaghetti at the wall, like, make a bunch of different hooks, and then once they find one that pops off, it's, like, all they do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
It was funny. So, we were or Tony, you know this person. I won't say his name, but you do know who this person that I'm gonna be sharing the story about
Sure.
is. So we were, me and this other person, we were hanging out with a, like, big time content creator. Like, I think she probably has probably close to 50 million across all platforms
Oh, damn.
at this point. So she's massive. And so the creator that, we were with, um, or that Tony, you and I are friends with, walked up to her and was like, "Hey, like, could you just, like, audit my page? Because we have, like, a dinner, with a bunch of creators, and we're just talking with her after. And she's like, "Oh, yeah, 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 I would love to." And she's, like, starting to go through his page, and it's like, new concept that does decent, and then old concept that did really well, like, we're talking millions of views, but he stopped doing that content for a while. She's like, "Why'd you stop?" He's like, "Oh, I was just getting bored, of the concept," and she's like, "But why'd you stop? It still had legs, like, keep it going, like, keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing
Right.
it." And I think, again, that's sort of the difference between the creator that wants to super optimize for views versus the creator that wants to optimize more for his or her lifestyle, right?
Sure, of
That's
course.
the same thing from a business standpoint too, right? Like, you can take it from that context, but it's always interesting to see the differences of how people look at things depending on their quote unquote success, and we'll call success on social like number of followers, right? In this specific case, where she was just so hyper focused on this is how you get more views, ride that trend until you start to see that it dies, and until it dies, just keep on going and going and going, pounding that hook, whatever that may be.
Right. Very, very I mean, and it's such a it is kind of a weird balance because when you like you said, if there's something that is working on social media and you're still getting the views and it still has legs, where does the balance come to where you actually as a creator enjoy making that content and you're not bored with it still? Because in my opinion, you create the best content when you really want to make that video or whatever. I've never really been wired like that, dude. I kind of like if I'm bored with it or whatever, like I won't post. Like I said, I have to be like truly inspired to make a new piece of content. But yeah, like you said, when you're there and you're trying to build that audience as best as you can, that probably is the best way to do it for sure. Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, as like I think you mentioned earlier, like the average creator lifespan is like 23 months because it's really intense. You have to at least like you have to like grind a lot. And I feel like just chasing the views, chasing other people's approval and doing the same thing over and over again leads to burnout. And I feel like chasing your own creativity is something that you can make create content creation creativity like in social media like a lifelong passion of yours too. Because I've been on the internet for like 10 years and I can relate like there's, like, definitely things I can do to, like, grind out and, like, get things more views, but I would get bored and, like, not wanna do it again. It's like an art that you shouldn't well, I guess, like, there's different ways, different goals. Like, some people want to just grow and make a lot of money, which is cool as well, but for sustainability, just doing what you actually like to do, it seems more fulfilling.
For sure. 100%. I mean, I think every creator kind of has that um moment where they realize, am I doing this for money because or I like it or am I doing I I don't know. I've definitely had that moment. Like, am I making this video? Actually, Justin, that goes back to one of our points before is what kind of transition from being a creator to focusing on the brand is that was kind of probably that moment. I didn't really want to make videos anymore of a color swirling around in a can. I wanted to show, you know, use of product, stuff that was more aligned with how I create and make the products, and wanna give it like, offer it to people. That's probably a good pivotal point that I had as well, and it worked out for the better.
Again, I think a lot of creators go through that stage, and it's a pivotal point in their
Yeah,
trajectory, whether they're able to make it successful or not, right? I mean, we have
right.
friends, some of those friends that came to that meetup or that we used to do in Orlando, where it's been about that 23-month mark. Some people aren't creating anymore,
Yeah, I
right?
know.
Um, but it is kind of crazy because you get to that point of can you turn this thing into a business rather than just this little hobby that you have on the side, and you have to kind of make that distinction of whether it's going to be a business or not.
For sure.
But I want to change subjects a little bit because I think your sort of business mind, your content mind, and your trend mind being able to find new trends is really fascinating to me. And so I want to say during your rise, right? Like it was sort of this rise of the POV creator, right? So like
Definitely.
you like making your paint, you had like Malad would do the Subway. It was Malad Subway, right? And then Dylan Malay with ice cream. You guys all had the same sort of POV type of content, right? Just within different niches.
Of course.
And then you can kind of say there's like my generation of niche too, where it's like the man on the street creators, right? You have like JC popping off, you got Sally Transparency Street, you've got all these different sort of man on the street type of pages doing really well. I really wonder from your standpoint, are you noticing any sort of trends when it comes to content like this where there's there's this specific niche of content that's doing really well? I mean, you brought up strawberry milk earlier. Like that is interesting. I think there's been a few others that have this sort of reality TV show behind the business type of content. But anything else that you've seen out there?
Well, no, definitely that's been the one that I personally realized the most probably since last quarter to now, of the content that's doing really well is the small business behind the scene, personality driven brands, I guess is probably the better way to put it. I'm trying to think like what else do I see that's working really well right now? Um, it might just be my feed because we never really know what's going like, but I've noticed a lot of like the um home renovation people, especially on Instagram, because I think I'm more of an Instagram user rather than TikTok at this point. Um, a lot of things with like aesthetics are still popping up, but that was the one thing that you kind of hit it right there was the like strawberry milk mob, Elijah's extreme hot sauce. Have you guys seen that guy before? Um, yeah, he's like this dude who was like now very successful hot sauce business. And he's always making videos like behind the scenes at his warehouse. I believe it's him and his dad that started the brand. Um, so I would say that's my biggest thing right now is like the personality driven small businesses. But when it comes to just like individual creators, I'm trying to think like who I've been watching the most recently. Um, it is a lot of the man on the street, I feel like I saw because I see those videos too. John Rusinoff. Yeah, I know him. He's like a guy who does I think he does a lot of college campuses where he'll go like give someone a challenge, then give him like a scooter.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Him. There was the guy with the wheel that was popping off.
Yeah, yeah,
Spin the wheel guy. That guy's
yeah.
hilarious. I don't know what you can build off of that other than maybe selling like that wheel, but that content was just entertainment content on entertainment. I'm looking at Elijah Extreme right now. Uh
Mhm.
this is pretty interesting.
It's pretty spicy.
That's what they say.
I
Oh,
wonder if
I get
he
the
agrees.
pun.
I
That
wonder if
pun
you
went
could
over
do
my head. That
I
Huh?
it didn't click until Grace started laughing, and I was like, "Oh, wait, I get it now." I wonder if you could do this model, like the sort of reality behind the scenes model before a podcast. 'Cause, like, there's not
Yeah.
really that for a podcast, right? Most podcasts, the
Mm.
marketing is literally just like I mean, we've done it for this show, just take the snippet, grab it, throw it onto social or whatever it may be. I wonder if there's a behind the scenes model for a podcast. We can talk about that one day, Grace.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's have a film content at South by.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do that. Yeah.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, I've noticed behind the scenes stuff is like what a lot of consumers and audiences are really after.
Mm.
Um, these days, you do see a lot of podcast clips too, at least I do, when it comes to like format. So yeah, those are probably the few things that I've noticed as like kind of being like a trend. Have you guys also noticed like the creator space is kind of like strange right now? I don't know
Well,
if it's
Strange in
because
what way?
if it's like winter, but like I feel like there's something on the rise to something needs to be new with social media. Within like probably this year. It's kind of like what I'm feeling out. That's just my opinion.
Like strange as in like what is strange that you noticed?
Um, I guess when we're getting back into like repetitive stuff, like I feel like I haven't seen that many new things popping off. to where
Mm.
there's probably opportunity for someone to kind of change it up.
That could be us. That could be us.
Yeah,
I think the what is it called? Creator Camp and the New Wave is probably the best example of people trying to change it. I agree with you, Tony, where it's like I wouldn't say it's strange, it's very stale,
yeah, for sure.
right? So it's very repetitive, like you said. There's a lot of man on the street type of stuff, and just different niches depending on how you want to do it. But there hasn't like there was sort of that Mr. Beastification of everything. I
Right.
think that like that has done what it's needed to do with content, but there's not really many people inventing off of that, so to say. Um, so maybe there is a new renaissance to come. I think the new wave is something that I'm paying attention to. Simon, Chris, Max, all of them are my boys. They're based out of here in Austin. So it's interesting to see what they're going to be able to do, especially with their, I think, Creator Film Festival
For
in
sure.
April. So I'm not sure if you know what they do, Tonester, but I know Grace knows some of the founders. But basically, like, their whole perspective is creators are the new like indie filmmakers and the next Hollywood big movie.
Oh, that's so dope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like they try to curate this list of content creators that are shooting YouTube, not necessarily just to please the algorithm, but like more from an aesthetic standpoint.
Very cool. That is very, very cool. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, they oh, sorry. What was that?
Oh, no worries. No worries. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say that's a very, very cool idea, especially when it comes to the world of film. I mean, you see the there's a lot of people who do bits and skits that become kind of successful in the world of acting. I mean, where there was even that like whole group of you guys remember the Film Quake guys? I think that's like from my understanding, the dude who that was like a Vine thing too, which was crazy back in the day. But yeah, I think there's a lot of correlation between skits, bits, acting, to where people have opportunity to build careers off of that as well.
Yeah, it also kind of reminds me of the YouTube 2010 days. Remember like
Yeah.
Smosh, Niga Higa, those videos. I love them, and I think they did pretty well. I've been seeing a little bit more of that on YouTube these days too. Stephen He, the emotional damage guy, like examples like that is pretty cool. He does acting too.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see because right, most YouTubers that try to make it onto the big screen don't usually do well, so to say, because it's not shot like that movie is not shot in a YouTube way,
Yeah.
I feel.
Mm.
It'll be again, I wanna see how the Critter Camp boys are able to pull, this off because they're looking at it from a indie film standpoint, but I think all of these indie films are gonna be shot more in a YouTube way
For
than
sure.
a sort of like traditional movie screen type of way. So I
Ah,
don't know.
very interesting.
It could be dope. They're based in Austin, so I haven't caught up with them in a while. I need to. I actually probably should during South by because they always they're wild. Like they have their house, they set it up as a compound, and like last year, what's his name? The CEO of Patreon just like stopped by for like an hour, hour and a half.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it's just like that's like one of their boys that they're cool with because like Patreon like sponsors a lot of their stuff. I'm like, that's wild. That what's his name just stopped by. Like,
That is cool. That's super dope.
um,
And it's in April?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Let me see if I can find it really quick. Wait, let me share my screen.
Dude,
Uh,
Brian from your team went to Creator Camp, right?
yeah,
Mm,
he's actually really cool. Like the
mm,
story of how he did it.
mm.
Like he didn't have a big profile on Greater Camp Film Festival. Like he didn't have a big social media following or anything like that. But he was able to network his way into meeting Chris, I think. And Chris was like, "Hey, you should come out to Creator Camp." And that first Creator Camp was like it was paid for by everyone. And this is their old thing. It was paid for and everything, which is pretty cool. But ever since that,
So
Brian's been pretty close with them.
that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, Brian's been popping off lately on social media,
Oh, his
on his
stuff is
Instagram. Yeah.
Let's see, Craighead Film Festival. Oh, here it is. Here it is. I found it. Present. No, share. Okay, can you see this?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so 26th, 27th. Patreon is the main sponsor. So like, yeah, they're friends. Like this guy Baron Ryan, he's based in Austin. He's the one that does like the TikTok film esque type of things. If you guys have seen that or his stuff before, but it'll be pretty cool to see if they can pull it off. I'll probably be in the area. I won't be able to go to it, but
No, this does look cool.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That is definitely you how was it you said they did this in 2023?
They've done this. I think they've been doing this since 22.
Oh
Their
wow.
Yeah, and then but their first one was in Utah, I wanna
Yeah, I
say.
just saw Park City, Utah.
Yeah, but they just did one in, Switzerland. Like, they got to work with the Swiss government, flew out all these creators to Switzerland to,
So
like,
cool.
create, it was basically like a hackathon, but for creator filmmaking, where they had to come up with, like, a short film in, like, 2 or 3 days or something like that. Um
Wow.
So, like, dude, their story is amazing. Like, I think this is another great example of building a business off of content,
Of
right?
course.
Because it's kind of like a content meta as well, right? Because all of these creators that are part of this film festival, they're gonna be creating, to your point, Tonester, like, behind the scenes content probably, that they're gonna post on their social, which then just hypes up Create a Camp Film Festival and everything like that in the future. So I think they've got a really good business model. Excited to see how the boys execute on it.
Now that is gonna be very cool. Yeah, like anything behind the scenes like that, like you said, it does hype the product up more. And I think that's really what like we were talking about even at our first points was like the story behind the every product. That's really what people are shift a lot of their attention to is the people, the stories, anything that results in the end goal of something that you could either watch, buy, have in your home, whatever it might be, where you're a part of that community and like you're supporting it.
Yeah, so people get to connect with the real person instead of just like, oh, perfection on the screen, which is cool because I love seeing more like raw, authentic content. It brings the human side instead of people. I feel like really like in the 2010s, everyone was trying to like picture perfect on social media. With TikTok came like the more authentic, more like real, unedited content on there too.
Of
I also
course.
seen a lot of startup founders, they build in public on Twitter, and that's how they get most of their customers too. So if I don't know, Twitter is actually a pretty lit platform. It's like pretty popping right now, and at least in my feed, which the algorithm really depends on what you kind of posts you interact with. But there's a lot of cool like founders kind of killing it out there, at least in San Francisco on Twitter, and digital nomads like on Twitter to grow their audience too, and like the building and
Interesting.
content style. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't really gotten into the Twitter game at all, only because, I don't think I ever really was on Twitter as much. But yeah, when it comes to like the visual stuff, like I know they now rolled out like kind of their real shorts, TikTok style of content, right? Or
hmm
feed. Yeah, that might be something to get into as well.
And LinkedIn for video, actually. I was chatting with someone who works at LinkedIn this morning, and he said that now is the best time to invest in video, but not for long, he mentioned. So, like LinkedIn, like you can easily get, at least I easily got like over 1 million views, like 63
Wow.
million views on all them on LinkedIn.
Low
But yeah,
key,
well, huh?
low
Go
key,
ahead.
Tonester stuff would probably pop. Like if you just take all your
Yeah.
old stuff and post it on there like weekly or like
Yeah.
daily,
Yes.
it probably does well because also LinkedIn people have a lot of money to spend too.
Of
hmm
course.
Yeah,
Right?
it's a
So if
premium
we're just
audience.
right, exactly. If we're just looking at average income of, like, different platforms, LinkedIn's probably number 1. So you could
hmm
probably get a whole new customer base if you just start.
Oh my god, that'd be so cool. You're right. I mean, that is the Toaster being at a luxury price point, which it's not significantly higher, but it is higher than most paint products. That is probably And people who own homes and want to design their spaces are probably on LinkedIn as well. That is a very, very good idea. Maybe I just start throwing up videos.
Yes, let us know
Same
how it
thing.
goes. Because right
Absolutely.
now, I was talking to basically someone who works on LinkedIn creators this morning, and it's basically like the wild west of early TikTok days, but for LinkedIn right now.
I mean, you never even what is the average user of it on TikTok, like age demographic?
On LinkedIn,
Yeah.
it's usually people who have a lot of money. So even though LinkedIn doesn't pay creators, you literally connect with like a lot of sponsors, customers, because people on LinkedIn they kind of go in because they want to network. They want to connect with you and maybe like look for new like job opportunities. But also a lot of people like maybe like people who have a lot of experience, like a lot of older people actually on LinkedIn who might have more money in their pocket to spend on the pinks
Sure.
and they might care about look at their houses because they're probably at Zoo meetings all the time. But yes, let us try LinkedIn and let us know how it goes.
I will try. I'll just throw one up a day, see what happens. I do have a Tonester page for Instagram. Is
Yeah,
it better to use the um my personal page or the Tonester page? Can you post videos
I
from
would say personal page.
personal?
No, I
personal,
think yeah, I think company
personal.
page
It
suck.
does better.
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah,
Yeah, just do it, like, make, like, a interesting hook, right, that I mean, that kind of aligns with what you're seeing on LinkedIn, and I bet you after you post 10, I would be surprised if one doesn't crack at least 100K, if not 1,000,000
Damn.
out of there. And again, those are all
mhm,
people that are likely making at least 60, 70, 80K plus a year,
Right.
right? So
Right. No,
mm.
I love it. I'd love to try that. It's not like it's not gonna take I will just post the same content as I have on Instagram and
Yeah,
TikTok, for sure.
yeah, and you got endless backlog too, right? You've got
Of
what,
course,
2, 3
yeah.
years worth of videos.
Oh, yeah. There's no shortage.
yeah. Post one today and let us know, and
Okay, I
tomorrow
can do that.
again.
Awesome. Do you have any like cool stories from your paint that like kind of stems off of your paint? I know like you mentioned some cool celebrities that have used your paint, but also, I mean, I just see from your stories you go to some pretty dope events. It looks like in like Europe and Paris and things like that. Anything that really uh is like, damn, that's crazy that I actually got to do this or this person uses my paint or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, the opportunities that have come from having such a unique brand in the marketplace that I'm in is, like you said, like the opportunity to be involved with Paris Design Week, Milan Design Week, because the world of interior design, I mean, it's so crazy because most credible designers are within like I mean, it's an older age range, right? Like there's not a lot of younger designers or people in the industry that are taken very seriously because they don't have, first of all, experience, the craftsmanship. Um, so that using the platform and building the audiences definitely gave me a level of credibility and interest in the interior design market because, and just getting views for having a product like mine is a very, in a lot of people's eyes, like just crazy. They're confused how that even happens. Um, but I'm trying to think, like, some other cool stuff that I've gotten to do. Uh, we worked with Steven Jenkins of Third actually, we're painting his house in San Francisco. He's the lead singer of Third Eye Blind. So, working with him directly, a lot of cool going into a lot of cool houses is another cool thing as well. Just, like, unreal homes.
What's the craziest either home or thing you've seen in a home? You don't
Dude,
have to mention the person's house, but like whose house it is, but like
there's a house, it's actually out of all places, it's here in Orlando. It's right in the Thornton Park area. I think they said it was like a $20 million home or something. It's where Oprah Winfrey does like she had that one TV show, that's where they would film it at. Um, so that's just right here in Orlando, and I was just invited to come in and check it out. Trying to think of another cool place that I've been to. Where in Paris have we been? Um, we did a beach house for Art Basel, which is very, very cool as well. Just that whole Miami design scene's insane too. Just getting involved in these kind of like events has just been super helpful for myself. Like we're talking about credibility, the brand, the Tonester brand itself. Um, that's definitely been, I think, the coolest part about it is the opportunities to get involved in stuff like that.
Yeah, the more you
And it's
post, the oh, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say it's stuff that I'm directly interested in, and sometimes it's comped, like, they want you to be there, so, I think a lot of creators have that step too, where their presence and their view value can get them into some really cool stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, the more you post, the more you increase your surface area of luck to get invited to more
Of course.
opportunities.
There's a lot of I mean, there's creators that get invited to very, very exclusive events, as creators, like, into promote it's kind of a sense of promotion, um but yeah, I you just see that all the time on social media now as well.
Mhm. That's awesome. I'm also curious, like, how are you thinking of evolving your business? Like next steps in your what are your goals for like content? Are you doing more colors, tapping into different markets? Like, how are you thinking of expanding Toaster Hanks?
Well, the one thing when it comes to, like, the business sense of it is expanding the product line, obviously, different types of paints, finishes, um, just expanding the offering to reach more people, more revenue, that area. But when it comes to the content, I don't know, I really want to really dive into the personality driven section of things like we were talking about before. Like, I wanna have, like, get back into people knowing why I do what I do. Because we do get to do a lot of cool stuff. We have a cool shop in Orlando, funny guys. Like it's a very, it could be built into something like that as well. And that's something that I would enjoy doing. And from what I've noticed of expanding and growing is doing whatever I kind of know in the back of my head I want to do has always helped the brand and the business. So making more organic content like that, more storytelling, really focusing on the drive of Tony Pelosino behind the Tonester brand and how it came to be, which is actually kind of it's kind of going in reverse to grow is because that's what I used to do. And that's why the Sherwin-Williams story was so interesting. Um, I pivoted off that to get where I'm at now, but I think going back to that is going to help it elevate again. And like I said, it's just content that I want to make, and I think it would be fun, and there's nothing wrong with that. It'll always help.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing it. I love those POV behind the scenes content
Yeah,
a
of
lot
course.
too.
Are you gonna build that under a new handle, or do you
No,
have
I'm gonna always keep it under the Toaster one. I
Okay.
mean, it wouldn't hurt to try, but I mean, no, I would keep it under the Toaster account. But
No. Yeah. I'm also curious, like, since paint is a pretty niche brand, and I'm sure a lot of people listening also have niche interests, and oftentimes on social media, people often say to go broad or go like more broad and like to capture a wider audience. Like, what advice do you have for creators looking to start a more niche brand?
starting a niche brand, it's really I've always found it to be easiest to kind of make content or a brand on something that you're like genuinely passionate about and knowledgeable about. Um, that's always what the advice that I give people. We have multiple creator friends that ask kind of what they should do to start if they wanted to start their own e-commerce brand or um I think you have to genuinely know what you're working with and what you're trying to offer people. It's like any sort of sales, right? I mean, you could sell anything, but if you're not passionate about it or knowledgeable about it, you can't make content about it and you won't grow an audience. You do see that on social media sometimes, kind of like people who will start a brand or product. I don't know if they're fully passionate about it, and it kind of almost seems like they're overselling in a sense, which no one really wants to be sold to on social media. You probably just want to, like I said, offer shareability, a little bit of knowledge, and inform people. So I said if you can do any of those kind of things, that's probably your best way to enter like a niche market on social media.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. Don't listen to like focus on what you want to do instead of like following the noise.
Yeah, I mean that's always worked. I believe.
Mhm.
Is there a niche or product or something that you use or that you've seen where you think that if someone slapped sort of the Tonester playbook onto it, it could be really successful, right? Like,
Hmm.
is it blankets? Is it I don't know, right? But, I'm not sure if you've ever thought about something like that.
Like getting into, I mean, I think getting into like a some sort of, I hate to say merchandise. Any sort of like fashion thing could work, I think, as well, because there's a big focus on a visual aspect to that. What's something else that is like visually appealing that could work? Trying to think of like what else I've seen recently that could work like that. Um, Fashion would be one. God, I feel like I see this stuff every day, and when you gotta lock it down, it's harder. I'm not too sure. Maybe I mean, you could essentially you mean the playbook essentially of like I said, like the shareability, knowledge, or informative.
Yeah, sort of like building a founder persona, right, behind a brand
Oh,
to make
okay.
it more premium. Again, there's a lot of people that have done sort of that playbook, but I was just wondering if there's any gaps in the market that you've seen. Like, for instance, I mentioned blankets, just like as a joke. There's a guy, I think he's big on Twitter. You've probably seen his stuff, Grace. I forget what his name is, but he created like like expensive Sherpa type of blanket slash hoodie
Oh,
thing,
cool.
and he called it
Oh.
I forget what his name
Mm.
is, but he called it like
Yes.
the comfiest hoodie or something like that.
Yes.
And he's been able to sell like millions of dollars around that. So I was just wondering if you have ever thought of anything or like when you're scrolling, you're like, damn, this is like the Walmart brand of this, but if they just applied it with a little bit of a luxury taste to it, it could really pop off as well.
I think you could do that with almost any sort of product or brand. I think if you kind of uh provide that value of, like I said, you can inform. It's like visually, there's an aesthetic to it as well, visually pleasing. I think you can do that with a lot of stuff. I was just trying to even think of like anything like, I don't know, like colored pencils or something, like luxury colored pencils. There,
I feel like
there,
people
there
love
is,
just seeing the process of things being
yeah,
made, right?
of course.
Um, I think that's why you popped off initially, right? With the paint, like playing. Can you guess what paint color I'm making or whatever it may be?
'Cause I don't think, yeah, it kind of goes into the informative value too, because a lot of people don't know how colors are made. So I think it was just interesting in that sort of sense, along with being visually pleasing.
Like your crayons. I don't
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
In
I think that
kindergarten, I wanted to be a crayon maker because I saw a documentary in class about how they make crayons, and it will make good content, I feel.
of course, make it like I think there is stories like how Crayola, like you probably just mentioned it, like how Crayola like came up with their colors and stuff like that. I believe, Justin, isn't there like a Crayola factory in Orlando?
Yeah, they've got one of the like crayon, or at least they used to. I don't know if it's still alive or not, but it was in the Florida Mall for a while.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'd always wanted to go, but then I would walk by it and just feel shame that it's just a bunch of 5-year-olds in there. And I'm like, yeah.
If people are making you feel ashamed, they're not your target audience.
I agree. I agree. But no, like I think the crayon market is interesting. I think what I paid attention that's kind of parallel to that is the like Japanese stationery side of thing. I'm not sure if you ever seen this, Tonester.
No,
Uh, I love how I call you just Tonester now. I don't even
bouncer. That's
uh,
that's kind of how the brand name was developed too. That's what people
It
called me for like,
matches your yeah, it matches your name so much. His name is Tony and tones,
yeah,
like different tones of colors. Like I just love your branding. It just
that
works
was
so
not
well.
intentional. That was not intentional. I swear. That
your
was
parents were playing 3D chess, bro.
yeah.
3D chess,
Yeah.
you
Hmm.
know? But yeah, so like Japanese stationery. So me and Michelle have been very interested in like creating like a stationery kit for us.
Yeah.
We want to like start sending out more letters and things like that. And like having our own brand whenever we send out like just thank you letters and like cool letters and things like that. So I've gotten onto stationery TikTok, um, which is kind of a wild place to be, but there's like list of top 10 most like stationary inventions this year. It's like the best eraser or the best pen, and it's always these Japanese brands that are on top of
So
this thing.
cool.
But it's like to your point, right? It's slapping. I'm gonna call it the Tonester playbook, but for
Yeah.
I don't think these have very much like marketing, like social media marketing behind it. It's just more of they built the luxury behind the brand. Um, and like it's all word of mouth at this point. But that's a niche that I've been very interested in. Maybe just make the American version of that.
That's so dope. That is so very, very cool. To your point, when a lot of these luxury brands, I've noticed that a lot in Europe as well. None of them really do social media. And I don't know if that is a strategy because some people may think that social media is not luxury. Um, but it's kind of worked for myself. And I don't know if those said luxury brands, because it's almost like a lot of those kind of things like keep it as like a hidden secret. Like they don't want everyone in the world to know about it. Do you know what I mean? To keep it more exclusive. That's kind of a model I've seen a lot work for these like I'm talking like crazy luxury. Like not many people can afford those specific products.
I just thought of an idea, and then Grace, you can talk because I know I've been talking a lot lately. Um, to your point about social media not being luxury. So there's a creator, her name's My Fam. Have either of
Yeah.
you ever heard of her before?
Yeah.
You
No.
have, right? So, did you see what
Okay.
she did with like one of her releases for like fashion or like her clothing brand release?
I don't think so.
So her public persona, right? Like she's got millions of followers on her public socials. To your point, people might view social as being a not very luxury space. So
Right.
what she did, I believe, is she created a private Instagram account,
Oh,
and
that's so
you
cool.
had to get accepted into being able to view this private Instagram account to buy the product or whatever it may be. And so, like, I wonder if, like, what if Tonester Paints made like a a paint brand called like I don't know Tone or
Yeah.
something like that, right? And then that was like a private Instagram page, and, like, if you know, you know, and that's where you release paint that's, like, 5.95 for a gallon of
Right.
paint or something, and it's, like, super, super niche or whatever it may be, and it's, like, collector items. That could be fascinating.
That would be
Hmm.
very, very cool. And it kind of eliminates a lot of if you could kind of have it catered, you could basically build your specific audience and customer base that you want. People who would take it serious, first of all, and would be serious buyers or you'd want them using your product. I mean, luxury brands do that with invitations to be the first to buy specific goods before they're even released to like whether it's like celebrity or very, very important clientele. So it's kind of like a model of that, I would think, right?
Hmm. Yeah, it reminds
So
me of the oh, go ahead.
no, no, you're good.
Sorry, sorry, I was lagging a little bit on my end. It reminds me of like there's like this community called Summit, and to get in, you have to like interview with them. You have to spend like 30 minutes talking with them, and then they tell you the price of the product. So I actually went to Summit at Sea last year, but it was like $5,000 for like 3 days. But to get like invited, you have to like personally interview with them. And then they're basically like selling it to you. But I got it anyways because I had a lot of friends say good things about it and I had a great time. I would do it again. But yeah, it was like interesting. They wouldn't like tell you the price of it on the website. You have to go through the interview to get invited to sign up, and then you see the price.
Very, very
Mhm.
interesting. You know what brand does that also is Rolex. Like, you can't walk in and buy a Rolex. Like, essentially, when I through my process of it, you had to it was essentially like an interview. They wait a certain amount of time, then they'll call you and let you know and basically let you buy it, which is crazy. Um, which I've always joked that there's very, very specific brands where they'll let you spend your money with them. It's insane. Um, so yeah, I think that is a very, very big part of exclusivity, and especially with those higher price points, is it's very important for you that you it's very important for the consumer to have it, um, because it's so hard to get.
Mm. Yeah, they have the scares like, "Oh, I feel special to be invited to
Of course.
drop 10K on something."
I know, consumer who
Yeah.
Justin, were you the one that mentioned consumer psychology earlier?
Yeah, I am not one of those people that will be spending money on any of these things. Like, it is I love the business behind it, um, but then I'm just like, that is absolutely insane that people like, what is the story? Is it Hermes? One of those brands where it's like you have to buy or you have to get invited to buy like a $250 like handkerchief or
Yeah,
whatever to then be able to buy a bag. Oh no, the Birkin, I
yeah.
think it is, right? Like that stuff is crazy to me that that is how that works. I understand it from a psychological standpoint, but I'm like, I'm sorry, Michelle. If you ever want a Birkin bag, give me that.
Well, when it comes from a brand thing too, I mean, it's depending on where you're positioned at and, where you're at as a company, like, you really don't need everyone's dollars. Which is a good place to be if you're a brand or a business, because if you can just kind of pick and choose who you're selling to, first of all, that makes your job as a owner of that brand or business more fun, because you're working with people and projects that you are actually passionate about and you think are going to be cool, instead of just trying to mass sell and get as much stuff out the door as possible. Which I would that'll be my position and has been my position for Tonester, especially with the price points that we have, the product quality. We're not here to sell paint, you know, 30 gallons to a home, new construction, where it's just bare white, really poor quality, just to have something on the wall. That's not what we're really focused on trying to sell. And, but there are a lot of companies in that I know that do that. That's how they get their sales, is volume. And we're just not really focused on that and probably never will be. That's another thing with collaborations too, is, once you're in control of your brand business, uh, you can pick and choose who you want to collaborate with. Um, you don't need to do the $2,000 brand deal, which for some people might be a lot, but you just don't have to do that to
Mhm.
keep the page alive, keep your career going, essentially.
Yeah. Do you still do brand deals, or have you ever done brand deals? And it seems like your main revenue stream is like the paints, right?
Yeah,
That
that's
woman's
always what I've been.
it always pops up on my
Dude, I know they're still running that, which is insane. But that was a very big one. So yeah, that's another. I mean, we still get offers for it, but I'm very, very picky on who I would do it, and it's just not my focus. Like, one we did recently was with Fiverr, only because I've personally used Fiverr to help grow my business, so it aligned perfectly. Was super easy to make. The offering was good from their end, and I said, "Why not?" Like, it was super organic because like I said, I've actually used it to develop Tonester in the past. So I said, "Why not?" and did that. But if it was like something I was totally not aligned with, even if the money was good, I'd probably say no.
Mhm. It's like a long-term investment. I feel like
Of
the more
course,
you share other people's voices, the more you dilute your own voice.
of
And so
course.
that's why it's like, yeah, that's very that's why I recommend everyone to be super selective and just like probably promoting tools that you already use. But I'm also curious, Fiverr, so like hiring like freelancers, how does your team look like in Tonester?
Ooh, my team right now is very, very strong. We have 3 operational guys who are just every day getting paint out the door, tinning, um, you know, shipping all the product that gets ordered every day. We have a PR firm that we have that is very, very good at inserting ourselves into these luxury, um they've done a really good job on the sense of, like, collaborating and working with other luxury designers and brands, kind of aligning ourselves into that market as well, because 'cause they're very, very, very connected, and actually, we use Sebastian's team, Unleash, for a lot of graphic stuff. So, they're not essentially hired by Tonester, but they're contracted out, and they've done a really, really good job as well. So, pretty small team, honestly, but it gets a lot done in a very short amount of time.
Mm. Wait, so for PR, what do they do? Do they help like connections like journalists and stuff?
Yeah, yeah, they work with a lot of editors in the, home design world, um, but really the biggest thing is their connections with other brands and designers, which we utilize in inserting Tonser into, these really cool projects that we get to be involved in.
Ah. At what point did you hire a PR team? And I'm also curious, how much do they cost?
Cost varies, but I've been using them for about a year or so now, and that's really been a big thing that's helped Tonser get into the space that we needed to, like we said, long-term wise, it'll be very, very helpful.
Hmm. At
I
what
feel
point did
like
you Oh, go ahead.
no, yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I feel like PR for your specific niche makes a lot of sense.
For sure.
The same way that it low key might make sense for my niche as well in the education space for declassified, because right, we both play in these industries that are very old and are very gate kept. So you need people to kind of open up those doors to be able to get your name in these magazines, which for our generation, like no one cares about these magazines, but for older generations, they might care a lot about, right?
Of
And so
course.
I think that's where it's valuable or PR companies can be valuable. I've heard a lot of horror stories about PR companies, but mainly from people that work that are in more newer, uh,
Yeah.
like, spaces, like, they're, like, literally creators to be entertainment creators, and I don't think a PR company really helps. I've never heard of a PR company helping that sort of type of creator out very much.
Definitely.
Mm.
Well, yeah, especially in the world of interior design, I mean, a lot of it is so when it gets into, like, magazines and stuff, I mean, like, the biggest, publications in the world are what drive these new brands, new designers into having, like, very success like, Architectural Digest, um, a lot of these home magazines that have been around for such a long time and are very, very credible. That's kind of how a lot of brands newer brands get their credibility or designers are working with those specific publications.
Mm. Wait, what are those horror stories?
Oh, you're talking about, like,
Yeah,
that I've heard of?
the
Like,
PR. Yeah.
again, I'm not sure how much you're paying for yours, Tonester, but, like, I know people that were paying, like, tens of thousands, like, a month, and then literally getting nothing from it. And again, I would say it's also because they're in very much more entertainment niches rather than these like older industries where
Yeah.
again, a story like myself or Tonesters in the higher ed space or the paint space is very unique. Like there aren't that many social media stories in these specific industries versus if you're looking at just entertainment in general, like you're competing with everyone, right? You're competing with Logan Paul, you're competing with Mr. Beast, you're competing with all these other people that have way more massive stories than you. So it's very hard to even get your foot into the door for any of those major publications. But those are like I've heard a lot more of the people that spend tens of thousands of dollars a month on PR agencies and getting nothing from it.
Yeah, that
Mm.
sounds about right. Well, I think the best thing with any sort of, like, real PR is, first of all, you could have a P is obviously they're pitching these stories to, like, a lot of, publishers and stuff like that, But I think the best way to get PR is to have good content and have good stories, and organically it really just kind of comes, at least from my point of view, because an editor will always find out about the new story because they're looking for new stories all the time. Um, so I think that's a good approach with like the PR stuff. And I remember we were talking to, remember the group of we had that one party, the in Orlando, at the house south of Orlando, with the video game group.
Yance's house? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they were very, very anti-PR. They don't like
Yeah.
PR. I remember them saying that specifically. But
Again, I think because they're at the gaming niche where it's like you're competing with the biggest games and the biggest budgets out there.
right,
You know what I mean? Like, how are you gonna compete with Halo's new release when you're this indie game? How are you gonna
right,
compete with EA's latest release, whatever it may be, right? When you are trying to build up this this new game that you're doing, right? So, like for context, even Chance, who is one of the co-founders of Call of Duty, who just happened to be from Orlando or went to school in Orlando, like it's even hard for him, I would imagine, to get good PR around the game that he's launching because it's like you're competing against giants and that media space is their game. That's
yeah,
all they know and that's all they care about because that's where all of their sales have come from traditionally.
right, right. Very, very interesting. It's different for every industry. There's a lot of different business practices that are different for every interesting. But yeah, the social media side of things is it's relatively consistent, in my opinion. I think consistency is always a key with social media. Is That's how you build your audience. So yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, this has been dope. This has been an
For
amazing
sure.
conversation. Right? I know we've been chatting for almost an hour and a half at this point, so it's been the time has flown by. Appreciate you, Tony. Feel free to plug where people can find Tonester paints if they want some dope paint to change their house in the cheapest way possible. Let them know.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can either follow us on social media at Tonester Paints for YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, or you can shop for your home products paint at tonesterpaints.com. Pretty simple. And it's now trademarked too, which is dope.
Congrats. Yeah, thank you so much. I learned so much from this conversation and looking forward to seeing your POV content and you posting your paint videos on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm gonna get that LinkedIn posted today.
Mm.
We'll see how
Yes.
that
Hell
one goes.
yeah.
But I
Let's do
appreciate it,
it.
guys. This is a lot of fun.
We'll throw it into the edit too to see how well it does.
Yeah.
I'll post one today and see, like, I wonder if I could change a hook and be like, uh, paint your home office or something like that, if it'd be more aligned. Or I should just post it like
Hmm.
as
You
is.
could low key post as is
Mm.
one, and then the next day be like you make a hook where it's like, "Is your office boring? This is how you can change it up."
Yeah, right.
Yeah, or how to raise up your office space
No, no,
because these
and then do
boomers.
like the
Yeah.
what's one of the emotions that you do? Like do
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but do like try and do one or find an old one that's more like not safe for work. So to say, if you have
Yes.
one,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that would kill. Like where it's like, if your office is boring, then you need to find some new paint, and then your hook is like.
Yeah, or like
We can
how
give it
to
a
riz
go.
up. Hmm.
Riz up the
And
office.
you riz up the office. Yeah, positive aura. W. But like, I noticed people on LinkedIn are a lot of boomers, and they get really pissed at like Gen
Yeah.
Z and Gen Alpha slang, and they'll comment on it, and it'll boost it on the
Hey,
algorithm.
comments drive engagement. Always have and
Yeah,
always
so piss
will.
off the boomers. Piss
Yeah.
off the
Yeah.
boomers. Do not say for work and say your riz, mewing, drink a chad, office, paint.